Hey guys, so today is Wednesday, April 1st. Oh, let me turn the heat down. So I know I just made a video yesterday, but I was thinking about some other stuff today and thought we might as well make a video and share some thoughts. So again, everybody and everything is about the coronavirus right now. And there's so much information floating around. It's hard to know what to believe. It's hard to take it all in. It's hard to know who's right and who's wrong. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, there's a lot of experts out there who are making very good guesses. And there might even be a few experts out there that, depending on the subject, are correct. But now they're talking about, I saw this morning a headline about that this crisis could go on through July, August. And that's a scary thought. I don't know what that means. Does that mean we're going to be on lockdown until July and August? Or does that mean that the death toll is going to keep going until July or August? Of course that's possible. I haven't listened to news myself. I haven't read a lot of articles. I'm anxious enough as it is, and the more data I take in, the more anxious I will get, because I don't know who's right, who's wrong, what's the truth, what's guessing. And if I read something, I'm going to immediately take it on, and then I'm going to second guess it, and then I'm going to be anxious because I don't know. And so usually in these situations, it's better for me to just stay on the outskirts. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk about, was that yes, you should be informed, yes, you should be knowledgeable, yes, you should know what's going on, but at the same time, don't overwhelm yourself. Don't take everything to heart. Take everything with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, your only job right now is to keep you and your family safe and healthy, because none of that outside data is going to matter as much, other than knowing how to keep your family safe and healthy. So focus on that rather than the worldwide data as a whole. Be thinking and praying for those around the world that are dealing with this, not only here in the United States, but everywhere everybody is from. Again, we are all in this together. We need to all be praying for each other and holding space for everybody that needs it, because we're only going to get through this together. We're only going to get through this as one, as much as possible. But at the end of the day, if there was no news, if there was no social media, if there was no way for us to get information like we do now versus the Spanish flu, at the end of the day, your main focus is to keep you and your loved ones healthy. So focus on that. What needs to be done to do that? What needs to be taken care of to do that? And then the other thought I was thinking about was, beyond all this craziness, you know, once this has died down and things are starting to get back to normal, to really encourage people to be changed by this. Be smarter, be more prepared, be wiser. This last year and a half, 2 years has been just craziness all the way around. And if you look back over the last decade, you know, between tsunamis and earthquakes and hurricanes and presidential elections and things like Brexit and the pipeline in Dakota, where there was the standoff with the government and they lost. And if you haven't read an update on that story, read an update on that story, because you know what? They lost their fight to not have that pipeline put on their line. And the last I read, the pipeline went in and ended up leaking and poisoning their water. So, you know, there's a lot of craziness that's gone on. over the last decade. This is not, I don't think this is going to slow down. I think that the world is going to keep getting crazier. Whether that be biblical or not, I don't really care to hear any biblical quotings. I haven't read the Bible all the way through, and I probably never will. And I know what it says. I was raised in a religious upbringing, and I know many of the verses throughout the Bible just fine. I know what it says. And I don't know. I think that to some degree, you can't deny that things are going according to what was stated in a lot of biblical, or not biblical, but religious writings, be it Christian or otherwise, be it the Bible or otherwise. This is the world we live in now. It's going to be chaos. It's going to continue to be chaos. So now is the time to hunker down. Now is the time to be thinking, not now, but as this goes through, be planning for the future. If another pandemic comes through in 5 years, are you going to be more ready than you were this time? If World War III does start, are you going to be ready? Are you going to be prepared? Are you going to be in a position to be able to ride out the storm? And that goes with not only having, what's the word I'm thinking of? Supplies, a safe place to go, a network to keep you informed and keep you safe, and supplies such as medical, food. Do you have knowledge? Do you have the knowledge to be able to live off the land if you needed to? Do you have the knowledge to be able to know how to treat minor ailments or even more major ailments? It's kind of like a lot of movies that you see where, they're in a situation where they have to make do with what they've got. I don't know why, but the Maze Runner is popping through my head. I think I'm thinking of one of the last ones. But, knowing what to do in those situations when everything could be shut down and there's no access to medical help, and you have something minor that you need to take care of, do you know how to do that? Do you have the supplies? And another thing, of course, that I was thinking about was money. Again, we've had it so good for so long. There's always the people that are more prepared. And I tend to be a prepared person as far as that goes. But I live with somebody who is not. And even in the face of a crisis, is still spending money on things that he does not need. He doesn't need more shirts. He doesn't need more shoes. He doesn't need more socks. Whatever it is he's spending his money on. He doesn't need Sirius Radio. He doesn't need Spotify. He doesn't need a lot of things that he's spending money on. And he just doesn't seem to understand the seriousness of A, the situation, or B, how bad it could get. That's money that could be being squirreled away right now. And if one of us or both of us then get shut down for 2 weeks, then he's going to go into crisis mode and go, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't have any money saved. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Hello? So I'm really talking to all you people that are like that don't understand that now is the time. Now is the time to stop buying things you don't fucking need. You have shoes, you have clothes, you don't need movies, you don't need Starbucks, you don't need, obviously it's a little different because things are shut down right now, but if things were not shut down, get a coffee pot and some ground coffee, find a flavor you like, and brew that shit yourself. Stop spending $3 extra or $4 extra or $5 extra every day on something that you could get for much cheaper from home. Stop over-consuming everything. The consumerism in this country is absolutely out of control, and this has definitely brought a light to what's necessity and what's not. I don't go into a lot of stores. Unless I need something, I don't go into a lot of stores. I don't go randomly shopping. Every great once in a while, like once every couple of years, I'll go into a store and just wander around. But unless I need something, I don't tempt myself. Because if I go out and I look around, I'm going to find something I like or something that I want, and then I'm going to be tempted to spend money that I don't need to spend. You know, there's a lot of money advice out there, and there's all kinds of advice about having an emergency fund. An emergency fund could be a month's worth of your bills. It could be 3 months worth of your bills. It could be a year worth of your bills. But I think that everybody needs to not focus on, if you would like to save a year's worth of your bills in the future, a year would probably be ideal. But you just don't have any extra money and you don't know where to start small. Start by having your goal be that you've paid your bills for that month, and you have a month's worth of the next month's worth of bills just sitting there, untouched. And then when the next month comes around, you pay your bills without touching that money, and you add to it. You start small, and eventually, if you get your ducks in a row, you can be saving more faster, but you have to start somewhere. And being afraid of not being able to do it or not being able to succeed, it shouldn't stop you from trying to do it anyway and start small. And when you have put that money aside, for the love of God, learn to tell yourself no. Self-discipline or lack of self-discipline is what causes most people's problems, in my opinion. I'm not an expert, but I watch people. I've dealt with a lot of people, and the people that have the biggest issues money-wise or relationship-wise or stability-wise is because they have a lack of self-discipline. They don't know when to tell themselves no. And when they do try to tell themselves no, they talk themselves out of it. They justify it. They find an excuse. Stop it. You're a grown-ass adult. Stop making excuses for yourself and be a grown-ass adult. Honestly. There is nothing that is not a necessity that is worth giving up that security when something like this happens. There's nothing worth it. You know, when something like this happens and you go, oh my God, I have no savings, and then you start thinking about all the stupid, frivolous stuff that you bought, then you have guilt on top of fear. Now you're fearful and guilty because you know that you could have saved that money. And then when the crisis is over, you go back to going, oh, okay, well, everything's fine, and frivolously spending that money again because everything's okay now until the next crisis hits. Stop the cycle now. Do whatever it takes to stop that cycle now, because you're going to be a much happier adult, a much happier human, knowing that you've been smart enough to prepare for the worst. And I'm not saying always be worried about the worst. Live your life like you have normal and happy and doing whatever it is that you do without thinking about the worst case scenario, but plan for the worst case scenario as well. You don't have to live there though. You don't have to dwell there. You can prepare for it without being in the trenches. And you should be prepared before the trenches are right in front of you and you got nowhere to go. This is a topic, obviously, that is I'm very passionate about, and I just thought that maybe if I could say my piece and give, a little bit of tough love, that maybe it can help somebody. Because, like I said, I don't think this is the end. And I think that once things have settled down and we have a chance to prepare for the next go-round of whatever comes along, we need to do that. I plan to make some lists of stuff that we need to have on hand once everything starts being stocked again. I still can't find rubbing alcohol. I still haven't found a thermometer. I did find one on Amazon, and I really should have ordered it through my husband. I think my husband has Prime. so that, you know, should one of us be feeling ill and have a fever, I can kind of gauge how much the fever is. We haven't had a thermometer in the house since the kids were really little, and I might still have one somewhere in all of my stuff that we have collected over the years. I just have no idea where one is, and I haven't seen one in the stuff that I've gone through. So, you know, things like that. We weren't able to find like rice and beans and stuff like that, but we should have already had those things. I have had savings over the last several years, but it's come and gone as things have come along that were needed, like taking the puppy to the emergency vet. Oh, I'll get to that. Yeah, most of my savings just went for the emergency vet. So now I have very little money saved up, and I'm not working any overtime really because I'm getting out of work as soon as I can. My end of shift time, is 4:30, and my goal is to be out as close as to 4:30 as possible. So I'm not getting my overtime, which makes my deposits smaller, and so I'm not able to save hardly any money right now. Which also brought me to the topic of I've talked about this in a few videos, but I collect coins, but not like your typical coin collecting that you would think of when I say that. I just keep my pocket change and I look at it under a magnifier. And I know there's some people out there in the coin community that's their strategy, is they have hoarded buckets and buckets and buckets of change, and that's their savings plan. But then I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, well, wait a minute, because right now banks are only some banks are not open at all, and other banks are only letting people in by appointment only. So right there, you just narrowed your ability to be able to do anything with that change. And if everything should shut down completely for some reason, you are stuck with buckets and buckets of pennies, and being able to utilize that to buy necessities is going to be a lot more difficult than it should have been. So I was, thinking about that, and like, it's not really a great idea to have tons of change. We should be, in normal times when the banks are open normally, we should be converting that into cash that we're either saving or putting into a savings account if you have a savings account. I don't think it's a great idea to hold on to it for change, unless you're collecting silver. Obviously that's a little different, or for those that have been collecting copper. I think it's interesting that the coronavirus lives a really short lifespan on copper, so that's pretty interesting. Maybe we should all take our discarded pennies that we were going to turn into the bank and like glue them to the outsides of our houses to keep the coronavirus out. Oh, they look like giant gingerbread houses with all the pennies on them. And actually, I wonder what that would look like over time though, as the coins patinaed and stuff. Or, that'd be interesting. Anyway, that was a random thought, sorry. So yeah, I was thinking about that aspect as well, is how you save your money. That could matter. If banks shut down, what happens if you don't have access to your savings accounts? Then what? You have no access to the money that you saved. What if the banks, the banks could go bankrupt? I doubt it, because they always get bailouts, but that's a whole other topic. But what if, worst case scenario, you have your money somewhere else and now you can't get to it? That's kind of crazy. Even in the stock market, if you have money in stocks and with different companies that do that, like, what if they shut down and you have no access to that money? It's a scary thought, but of course you don't want to keep that money in your house either, because that people trying to come in your house to find that money. The small town I was living in when I was pregnant with my daughter, the guy that lived behind us, there was a legend that, I think he lived in a manufactured home, if I remember right, and there was a legend around town that he had like a whole room full of shoeboxes full of cash, that he'd never used a bank, and he'd always saved almost all his money in cash, and he had shoeboxes and shoeboxes of cash in his house. And the fact that half the town knew that is probably not great. He also was known for having a shotgun and a guard dog, and motion lights and cameras and stuff. So that made the attempts. Nobody attempted it as far as I knew, but he's gonna keep getting older, and he's gonna keep getting less able to protect that if that was the case. So we don't necessarily want to do that either. So really thinking about those things, how are you going to prepare money-wise that if everything shuts down, you have currency for trade? What items can you prepare and store that could be used in trade for other items should an actual apocalypse type situation happen? What are those things? What would be valuable? What knowledge would be valuable that you could trade your assistance and knowledge for supplies? Like all those movies, I don't believe that anything, I believe that everything happens for a reason, and we've all seen in the past where a movie or a book has eerily come to pass decades later or centuries later. If any of you read Weird Facts, there's a book about a guy named Trump and his son, and I forget the details, but it was written like way back when, and it pretty much, I wouldn't say it's totally parallel, but there's a lot of parallel things to do with the current Trump and his son, and this book was written long before they were born. So that's pretty creepy, and so I believe that movies are made for a reason. Things are depicted for a reason. And I believe that the scenarios that you see in some of those apocalypse movies, that could come to pass. Never say never. So don't laugh it off and not take it serious that you should be prepared in a worst case scenario. That extra fancy pair of shoes is not going to help you worth a shit if the world is shut down and everybody's preparing for war or whatever the case is. There's another pandemic, possibly worse than this one. Those designer name brand sunglasses aren't going to help you worth a shit in those scenarios. So let's be smarter about our spending. Let's be smarter about being aware that the worst could happen, and now is the time. Just because things have been good for so long and this is one bump in the road, don't think that there's not more bumps coming. It's time to grow up and wake up. If you've been worried about getting your nails done and getting your eyebrows done and getting your hair done, stop it. Just stop it. Like, none of that is going to help you in the worst case scenarios. None of that. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to discourage, I have a friend that owns a salon, and her business depends on people getting their hair done and getting their nails done. But you don't need to have acrylic nails 365 days a year. You don't. You don't need an extra dye job 365 days a year. It's not necessary. It's all ego and, aesthetics. How about you learn something that's actually going to be valuable when shit hits the fan? How about that? So, yeah, back to the puppy real quick because I'm almost to work. So, here's another little tidbit of information. If you own a dog and you don't already know this, Ibuprofen is toxic to dogs. It will shut their kidneys down. One of the main reasons it's a problem is because, unlike us, our bodies will get rid of the ingredients in the ibuprofen when we're done with it. It processes it through and exits our body. For dogs and cats, it does not. It keeps cycling through their bloodstream. So it poisons their bloodstream, and then it just keeps cycling through because their bodies are not able to get rid of it. One 200 milligram tablet for a medium to small dog is damn near a death sentence, probably, unless you act immediately. So thankfully we have a 100-pound dog, and we're not sure how many he ate, but he did get into ibuprofen last week. And we've now spent money calling the was it the animal poison control? I think that was a $60 charge. We had to get medicine from the vet, and then he Friday started having diarrhea Friday night, and it went all the way through to most of Saturday. So by Saturday evening, it seemed to be getting runnier and runnier, and so I thought, you know what, it's getting worse. I'm starting to see little tinges of red. That's not a good sign. I don't think we're out of the woods yet. So we called the poison control back, and they advised that we take him in to an emergency vet right away. The closest one was an hour away. By the time we got there, it was like 6:30. I think it was closer to 6. And by the time we got seen, it was like 8:30. And by the time we got out of there, it was like 10 o'clock. And by then, we were having a blizzard in St. Cloud. So it was a long drive home, not being able to see the road, the lanes. The snow was super heavy. It was caking on the headlights. It was bad. But yeah, $300 later, we are hoping he's going to be okay. We got more medicine for him, and they took a blood draw to see where his kidneys were at, and everything looked okay. So put him on a bland diet and some more medicine, and we're working our way through that. The diarrhea seems to have stopped, so that's good. But he's still not pooping every day like he was, so I think the anti-diarrhea has got him a little backed up. And then the bland diet is probably not super great for pooping. Sunday, I think it was, he hardly drank any water at all, and that was very nerve-wracking because he normally drinks a lot of water. And I gave him the water I always give him in the morning, and literally by like 8 o'clock at night, he hadn't hardly touched it. He'd had a couple of licks out of it, but he hadn't even drank the little bit I gave him. So that was really concerning and totally abnormal. But right before I went to bed Sunday night, he walked over and started drinking like the whole thing, like he should have been all day. And then yesterday, he was drinking normal again. So we're just keeping a close eye for any kind of weird behavior like that, and I'm hoping that nothing else comes up because I don't have anything. I have no backup money now. I'm screwed if something happens. So yeah, and whatever money I have saved is usually the backup money because of my husband's spending habits. So yeah, that about covers all of my thoughts for the day, I think. I think I covered everything I wanted to say. And if not, I'll just make another video tomorrow or tonight on the way home. So everybody stay safe. Everybody stay healthy. Stay home. Wash your hands. Wash your fruit. Disinfect your handles, door handles, buttons, light switches, phones, everything. Use protection at the gas pumps. Use protection at the keypads. Don't go anywhere unnecessarily for things that you don't actually need. All right? I will talk to y'all later. Bye.